While everybody was debating if AI is just hype, I was running my AI automation agency. I've managed to scale my agency to about 80k per month, and I've seen this industry go from nothing into one of the biggest opportunities of our generation. But there's a couple of things and a couple of traps that you can fall into as you start your AI automation agency that will delay you months and in some cases completely rattle you and make you fail. In this video, I'm going to go through everything that I wish I knew before I started and some of the traps and kind of obstacles that I fell into that delayed my success by months. Now, to get straight into things, one of the biggest issues that I see a lot of people face is the productized versus custom AI solutions. Now, there's two kind of different routes you can take when you first start your AI agency, and one of them is having a productized service. So that would be, for example, having an AI automation or a make automation or something like that that you can duplicate and you can sell to multiple people. The second option is kind of custom building solutions for every lead that you come across. Now, there's pros and cons to each of these, but the end route or the end one that you want to land on is a productized AI service because it's infinitely more scalable than custom solutions. Now, that being said, I would not start with a productized service. When I started, I built custom solutions for a range of different people until I niched down. When I niched down, then I still built custom solutions for a range of real estate agents. Now, the bad thing about this was for each client, I had to rebuild the whole automation, the whole workflow, and I had to do a lot of going back and forth with the customer to figure out if this was right, to figure out if this was what they needed. And essentially, it took a lot of time just to deploy an AI or deploy any sort of automation for one customer. Along that journey, as you build custom AI solutions, you will start to notify problems that become consistent along that whole industry. So when you niche down to your industry, let's say it's solar or some sort of industry, it's best to stay as a custom solutions AI provider where you go in, you determine what they need to be built, or you determine their pain points and you build an AI automation for that. And over time, over maybe 5 to 6 clients, you'll be able to identify problems that each of them face. When you identify these problems, then that's when it's time to productize. So after maybe 1, 2, 3 months, you've identified a couple of problems, it's time to productize that service. So then each time you get a new client, you don't have to build a custom service. You can just approach them with this solution that you can say you've built for 5 to 6 clients, and a majority of the time they'll be happy to just take that and save time or save money, whatever you're doing for them. Now, this is something that you cannot do off the jump. You can't just build a productized service from the start, because I've seen it multiple times. I've seen people do it before. They try to build a one-for-all solution and they end up building something that nobody wants. You need a deep amount of knowledge on the industry that you're working in to be able to build a productized solution. So if you want to jump into that industry and build something that you think people will want, there's a high likelihood that nobody will want that, because the problems or the solutions that people actually do want, they reveal themselves as you build these custom AI solutions. You'll start to see patterns, and in this pattern recognition, you'll find them solutions and you'll be able to productize your service. When you productize your service, it becomes a lot easier to sell because you can approach people on cold DMs with a lot more focus and a lot more precision, saying I can do X, Y, and Z for you in a certain amount of time and get you X amount of clients. To approach people with custom AI solutions, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to approach them from a stance of I can do anything with AI, and to a lot of people that just sounds like rubbish. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear direct solutions that you can save them or that you can do for them. So at the start, stick with custom solutions, identify a problem and reiterate on that and productize that service and continue to then make that better, and then you can just copy and paste it for each client. Now, to get into like how do we get clients, so we've identified that you kind of have to build custom solutions, identify a problem, and then productize that AI automation. Now, but how do we reach out to these clients? How do we really get clients? Well, there's the two main ways, which is inbound and outbound. And to kind of quickly summarize the difference between these, inbound is when a client comes towards you, outbound is you go towards the client. The most effective way to get clients is inbound. Stuff that would be inbound would be like, as you can see in here, creating content and attracting prospects to you. When you attract prospects to you, the chances of you closing them increase significantly. For stuff like outbound, like this, when you're reaching out to the clients, that would be stuff like cold email, where you kind of interrupt their day and you tell them about your product, or it can be cold DMs, cold calling, stuff like this. The usual rate for kind of the biggest outbound method being cold email, the usual rate of reply is about 2%. So if you send 100 emails, 2 people will reply, and the chances of them being a positive reply again decreases by about 30% of that 2%. So it's really, really low. If you send 1,000 emails, you might get maybe 4 positive replies, and then you still have to close them. For inbound, if somebody comes towards you and they've seen your content, or they've seen your product or your website, or they've seen some sort of marketing from you, if they come inbound towards you, the chances of you closing them goes up to about 80%. Now that's a massive jump. That's a significant jump, and obviously inbound is better. But inbound comes with its challenges as well, because you have to spend months building up prospects and building up reputation and authority in your industry. But it's something that you must do. There's no kind of ways around it. You can't just build a faceless business that nobody knows about, especially in our day and age now, which is 2025. You can nearly get away with not having a website and just having a strong personal brand. That's how strong building and posting content is for bringing inbound clients. So if I was to give you one piece of advice on this section, I would say post content for your ideal customers and for your industry on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you can master even one of them, but better off doing 2 of them, if you can master them, then the amount of leads you have coming in will be 10 or 20 times the amount that you could possibly do with outbound. Outbound, again, the pros of this is you can start immediately. You can start sending cold emails, or you can start doing cold calls, and you don't really need too much authority or reputation in your space, but it's a lot harder to close people. That being said, I would do both of these. I mean, we have an agency now, and we have quite a consistent flow of leads coming inbound, but we still do outbound because it's very scalable. So for example, we can send 50 to 60,000 emails a month, and it really doesn't require too much effort from us. Now, recording content takes a couple of days for a few pieces of content, so that takes a little bit longer, but the content is a lot more effective, especially when it compounds over time. So if you're starting your AI agency in this space where it's still very fresh, and you're able to position yourself as a thought leader and as somebody who has a reputation in your area, not only is it going to benefit you now, but as the industry kind of matures more, people are going to look to you as the real thought leader, because you've been posting content from 2025. So for example, in 2027, when literally every business needs AI automation, you're going to be the first person that they think of, because you've been posting content for the past 2 years. So if you are getting into this space, content is a must. Now, another thing I see people struggle on is the whole pricing aspect of things. So I've landed my first client. He says he needs X, Y, and Z. How much do I charge him, or how do I know how much I should charge him? And this is a problem that I've kind of faced not once but multiple times, especially when you're doing custom development. The way that I've kind of gotten around this, and the way I've determined how much I would charge people, is I usually charge them about 30 to 50% of what it would cost them for a human to do it. Now, to kind of come up with that price, or to determine how much it would cost a human, for example, if I was building an email agent, I would ask the client on a sales call, I would ask them, how much does it currently cost you to answer all of your emails? And if they said, well, we usually just have one person on our team, like a receptionist, that answers all the emails, and she usually spends most of the day answering them, well, the minimum wage would take that up to about 40,000 a year. Now, This receptionist has to take breaks. She needs training. They need oversight. They only work between certain hours, and in some cases they get bonuses. When I would pitch my service, I would pitch it exactly like this in this image. We can cut that price by about half and bring it down to 20k a year, and our AI agent will work 24/7, doesn't need training, doesn't need breaks, no overhead costs for you, doesn't even require any bonuses. Now, to a client, this is quite attractive to them. If they're able to save 50% and improve the customer service or the customer satisfaction rate, well, that definitely increases the chances of us closing them as a client. So that's kind of how I would go about pricing these services. If 50% is a little bit too cheap, like your running cost comes up to about 10, 15k, then obviously up that price to maybe 25, 30k. But price it fairly and price it to a point where it's attractive enough for them to get rid of a person on a team or upskill a person on a team to implement this AI service. Now, another thing that, like as I started getting into the space, I was kind of worried about was like when I started out like a year ago, there was really no clients or there was nobody to sell to because AI was just this buzzword and just this kind of hype train that people would mention left, right, and center. We are now in this stage here, which is called the chasm. Now, in this chasm space, it's the kind of swap over from the early adopters into the early majority. And this is the phase in which stuff starts to flood in. So for us, if, for example, over the past 3 to 4 months, our business has been growing significantly because people are starting to realize now that it's not just hype or it's not just kind of a buzzword, that you really need to implement this for your business to survive in this day and age. The early adopters is them people that kind of like to take risk a lot more. And in this early majority stage is people that don't really like to take risk. And in this stage when they don't like to take risk, they wait for people like this in the early adopters phase to implement stuff like this and see if it actually works. And then these people over here will then adopt it if it's working. Now, in this stage here, over the past maybe 2024 and early 2025, people have started to adopt this, being the people that like to take a little bit more risk, and it's obviously started working for them. Now, these people over here in this stage have started to catch on to that, and in the kind of rest of 2025 into 2026, this is when we'll start entering this phase, and people have to start eating up the profits in this phase. So if there was any time to start an AI agency, now would be the time. There has really been no better time. I've been in this space since about this stage here, all the way up to here, and getting clients was really difficult because you had to kind of educate people and sell them on the service as well. So we were kind of consulting people on what AI was and how it could save them and how it could help them. And after we consulted them, then we'd be able to kind of close them. So the sales process was a lot longer in this stage. Now, as we get into this stage and over the past 3 months, the sales cycle for us has dropped by nearly 80%. We're able to sign people a lot quicker because people are a lot more educated on what AI is. And I think as we go into this space, it's going to drop again, and the prices in which we can charge will increase because people all over the world, all over the globe, are looking for people that have authority and people that have been doing this for a decent amount of time. So to kind of sum this into one thing, I would say this is the stage that we're going into, which is this early majority or this early majority. To kind of sum this up, I would say this is the stage that we're about to enter and kind of coming into summer and late 2025. So if there was any time to start your AI agency, it would be now because there has been really no better time. If you started earlier, kind of like us, it was a little bit too early, in which it would take really long to close somebody. But in this stage, you're going to see a lot of people make a lot of money. So what would I recommend for the next 6 months for you to take action? Well, the first thing I would do is, like we mentioned before, start with your custom development. So you're trying to just get some builds under your belt and really figure out, well, what is something that I can productize here? Now, in that time, I would also be building content and what that will do is that will bridge that trust for you. It will also build your reputation and show that you really know what you're talking about, which is your technical expertise. Again, in that time, I will also be doing outbound, which is obviously not the best. It's more obviously this is what we're banking on for the future, which is content which will bring in the inbound clients. But in the outbound is what's going to get us them instant clients. So doing loads of cold DMs, doing loads of outreach, that's what the outbound is going to do for us. Then month 3 to month 4, I would try and find my pattern recognition. So after you have signed a few clients, maybe 3 or 4 clients, I'm going to try and start identifying patterns in which all of these companies are facing. So let's say I was targeting solar panel people. I would build these custom solutions, and in each of them solutions, I would try and identify problems that all of these companies are facing. Again, keep up with your content and your outbound strategies. This is kind of your bread and butter and to how your business is going to survive. If this doesn't work, then your business is not going to work. So you have to produce content for the inbound clients, and you have to be actively outbounding or outreaching and networking with other people to try and close them as a client. Now, in month 5 to 6, I would start my productization stage. So after I have recognized any patterns in our custom development, then I would start productizing that service so I can start closing clients a lot quicker. And in the outbound stage, when I'm reaching out to people, I can be a lot more precise and a lot more focused, because when we are outbounding to people in this stage, we're building custom projects. So our outbounding is going to look quite like unfocused and uncentered. So if I'm reaching out to solar panel guys and I'm just saying, hey, I can build AI stuff for you, do you want to jump on a call where I can figure out how I can help? It's a lot less attractive for them if I say in this stage, after I have something productized, hey, I can close you 5 clients by automating your client communications in 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, I can sign you 5 clients by automating your client communications. That becomes a lot more attractive to them because it's focused and it's centered around them and around their business. So that's why our productization stage is key. With the productization stage, you can start to scale them because onboarding clients becomes a lot quicker. There's no custom development. You don't have to spend weeks going back and forth and developing the service. It's basically already built and you just have to sign the clients. So here's where the scale comes. This is the stage where you start to hit 10, 20, 30k a month. In your custom development stage, you could do this up until about 10 to 20k a month. And then again, we're going to stick with content, and this is something you're going to do probably for the rest of the time that you are in this business, or for at least the start to build up that credibility in the niche that you're in. But that's basically the roadmap I would follow. If you need any help, just shoot me a comment below. Please leave a like. It helps me out a lot more than you think. And in the first thing in the description, I will leave a link to my community where you can join, where we do live calls. You can download, make templates to start selling for yourself. And it will fast forward your AI agency a lot quicker than if you were to do it on your own.